I've loved flying from the very first time I had a chance to climb into a military airplane. I knew right then and there that's all I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It was extremely addictive. I had the great fortune in the Marine Corps to fly Harriers. It was not my first choice. I wanted to fly fighters, and the Harrier had a very bad reputation at the time, but that's what I was assigned to do. And after my first flight in a two-seater, I was hooked. It was just amazing what the airplane could do compared to the other airplanes I had been flying, which was an A4.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. So there I was, which is how all great aviation tales begin. This is episode 46.
It is.
Entitled, what's it entitled, RePete?
Carefully check the fuel cell with a torch.
Ouch!
Right? We get into that because we talk about Harriers this time, and the gent we're talking to has a couple.
One of a kind. He's a one of a kind.
Right? No, really. He has a couple Harriers, and he flies them. He's the only civilian to ever own Harriers. Takes them to air shows. Yeah.
Yes. For real.
Real live Harriers. It's a Sea Harrier was the first one he got. And, but he goes back and talking about flying the 88A back in the early days in the 70s in the Marine Corps and reading the British flight manual that came with it. And he says it's a completely different language. As I said, with the United States and England, two countries separated by a common language.
Right.
And that was in the flight manual. Carefully check the fuel cell with a torch. That
meaning a flashlight.
Yeah.
You know what? It's this episode starts with, it's like being shot out of a cannon.
I was just going to say that. He comes out in full afterburner, even though they don't have an afterburner in the Harrier. He comes out in afterburner and doesn't slow down until he pulls the throttle to idle on deck.
That's a fact. I was out of words. I didn't know how to respond when we started off. It was like, I don't even know where we're at. He went so fast. Right.
Most guests start with, so there I was, and then stop and wait for us to do all our polite, happy, crappy. Not this time, man. He's right into a story. Boom.
Boom. So there I was on fire, 800 feet in bird. Yeah. Really. It was a blast. And,
so listen fast, folks. This one's hard to listen to. It's fast.
It's fast.
And it's two shows. We broke it. We spent almost 2 hours with him. So we broke this up into two shows. First part is his Marine Corps career, his test pilot school. I like the stories, Fig, about him being on the Spanish ship and the Italian ship.
Yes. Great stories. Eating fish sandwiches. Enjoy them.
You Americans eat the heads?
He and not only just test pilot, he went to Air Force test pilot school.
Yeah.
As a Marine. And that's a good story too. Boy, he's flown a lot of airplanes, and he's a very accomplished aviator, a test pilot at that. And like I said, one of a kind.
He is indeed. So Kaos is an appropriate call sign. Strap in and listen fast, because this one comes at you fast, and it was a lot of fun.
Hang on.
Yeah, hang on. Don't sit on the ejection handle.
Don't sit on it.
Here he is.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit, on the tanker, through the weather. And to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that.
You don't mean it?
I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't.
So there I was at a small bar on the outskirts of Olongapo City in the Philippines, and they needed a volunteer from the audience. And I better not. We probably better not go any further.
I had no idea that was coming.
Right. There you go. Welcome, everybody. You're listening to the podcast. So there I was, RePete, coming to you from Paris, Fig's at home in Kansas City. And today we have with us Kaos, coming to you from Maryland. Thank you so much for joining us, Kaos.
I'm glad to be here. Yep. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, we hope you'll enjoy being had by the end of the show.
I've been had many times.
There you go.
Listen, I already feel like I've done a small core workout just from the pre-show laugh
Right?
I've already had.
This is going to be a fun one. Absolutely. Before I manage to forget to hit the record button, so we're starting a second time, but I'm gonna circle back on our original first question and say, Kaos, can you tell us how it is that you wound up being interested in airplanes?
Well, I never grew up near an airport or anything, so I never had the opportunity to, wash airplanes for an hour, flight time in a Cessna, any of that stuff. And we didn't even know anybody that had an airplane, as far as I know. I was a midshipman at the Naval Academy, and in the second year, they send you to submarine school in New Haven, New London, Connecticut, one of the Connecticut things. I knew I didn't want to do that. And they sent to Pensacola, and you got to ride in a T2, you got to ride in a T-34, and you got to ride in a helicopter. And I after the first ride in the T2, they threw us in a room and said, grab one of these, one of these, one of these. And I was the very first guy by the door. And he said, well, you ready to go, cupcake? And so I didn't want that to be my call sign for the rest of my life. So they strapped me in a T2. It was kind of a 2,500 day overcast or so. And a female plane captain strapped me into the ejection seat and then reached between my legs and pulled out the safety pin, pulled the other one from the top and said, these are the pins. If you pull that handle, you are going to go. That was my ejection seat brief.
Nice.
Yeah, I think they've expanded that a little bit since then. And we took off and went up above the clouds, and it's a beautiful white. You're looking at the beautiful sky, blue sky above, and clouds below, and I'm just in awe. It's like the angels are singing, "Wah!" And he says, "Well, you want to fly?" And I said, "Can I?" And I took the stick. He said, "Take the stick," and I immediately went, 60 degrees left, 60 degrees right. Well, he goes, whoa, 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 you want to maneuver? And I go, well, I don't even know what maneuver is, but yeah, I think I want to do that. And so he said, let me show you some stuff. So we did an aileron roll. He let me do an aileron roll. We did a barrel roll, and he's talking through it. He let me do one, and he let me do a loop. Loops and rolls are pretty easy. Barrel roll was a little bit more complicated because I have a few more numbers to hit. And he goes, you ever done this before? And I said, never been in an airplane before. And he says, well, you seem to have a gift for it right now, and I hope you continue with it. We came back and landed, and I knew then that's all I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Nice. The next day, I got a chance to fly in a T-34, and we did some formation. And nice. the instructor's practicing. I'm looking at a wingtip, 3 feet away or however far it was, and I'm going, that's pretty cool. And then he broke away and said, don't tell anybody we ever did that. So that's why you get to erase that from this podcast. And he was practicing.
Considered erased.
So he says, well, you want to fly? Can I maneuver? I knew the key word. And he says, what do you know how to do? And I said, I can do a roll, I can do a loop, and I can do a barrel roll. And he said, show me. And I did. And he goes, have you ever done this before? And I said, yesterday. So then he goes, would you like to try a landing? And I said, yeah. So he does a landing in T-34, and and he says, I got the throttle, I got the stick, and he's showing me, he's talking off numbers around the pattern, 600 feet here, 300 feet here, 1,000 feet down, and make it go down the wing line of the airplane. Okay. And he says, next time you got the stick, I got the throttle, fly those air speeds. We did. Third time he says, you got the stick and the throttle. And we flew, and he goes, you're doing pretty good here. We gotta kick this up a notch. See that little teeny rectangle there? That's the carrier deck. Let's see if you can land in there. So I came around the corner and was hitting all the numbers. I'm looking at altitude, airspeed, looking out, seeing the same picture he did. And I realized I'm going to be a little long and fast coming into the carrier deck. So at about 15 feet, 20 feet, I chopped the throttle to idle. And the airplane, boom, right down there. And he goes, well, I didn't expect that, but the airplane's reusable. I've used that word a lot since then.
Yeah.
The airplane's reusable. You didn't hurt the airplane, and you landed on the carrier deck. He says, now, the biggest thing that washes people out to flight, you got like 3 years before you got to go to flight school, or maybe longer than that. He says, the biggest thing washes out is people's eyes. He said, don't do anything that's going to hurt your eyesight. I mean, quit welding without goggles.
Right.
things like that. Don't do anything stupid to hurt your eyesight, and try to protect it as best you can. So I did, and I knew right then and there that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Everything else kind of went to the back burner, in case I flunked out of flight school or something like that. I did like tanks a lot, and so that would have been what I wanted to do second.
They're not quite as fast, but
no, but they have a big gun. That's nice.
That's pretty cool.
All right,
that's awesome. So why Marines instead of Navy? I mean, you're going to the Navy school, right?
Yes. So. Yeah, the boat school. Our leadership, I had two leadership instructors. One was Jack Fellows, who was a Navy POW at the Hanoi Hilton during Vietnam, and I respected him a lot. And he passed away about 10 years ago. The other one was a Marine major, was Reynolds, and he invited anybody that was even remotely interested in the Marine Corps to all the Marine Corps events. He held a Marine Corps ball, and we had a dining in, and we had a few things like that. And so I was kind of intrigued. And also, I never saw a fat Marine officer. Well, that, of course, has changed. I've changed that mold. And I said, you know what? I think I might kind of like this. And then on the senior cruise, I got a chance to go with the Marines on an amphibious landing off the coast of Sardinia. I was going to be an assistant platoon commander. We're in the middle of the operation. The captain of the ship shows up. Okay, we're in the middle of operation. We're busy. We got people going left. We got people going right. All kinds of things happening here. Please do your best to stay the hell out of the way. Okay, welcome aboard. We had a Marine come on board. We're in the middle of a big operation. Lots of things going on. People moving left, people moving right. If you want to be part of us and see what we really do for day-to-day operations, go over and see Lieutenant Smuckatella over here and give him your sizes. We'll outfit you, and we're going to put you to work. And that appealed to about 24 out of 26 of us that were on that ship, and got the uniforms. And the next morning, 4 o'clock show, we're getting ready to go ashore in the helicopter. And the platoon sergeant comes to me and says, "We had 2 Marines jump ship last night, so the lieutenant's not going to be here. You're in charge." And I got cami paint, and I said, "That just means you look at me and I'll nod whenever you tell me to do something." The lieutenant showed up at the last minute, but we were ashore for 3 or 4 days. I don't think we got more than 4 hours sleep per night. And there's nothing on that island that grows higher than 18 inches, except rock. And it was hot in the day, cold in the night. And I had a chance to sit there and talk with the lieutenant about why he liked the Marine Corps so much. And he says, it's because of the Marines. He said, these guys, if without me, they'd be, I have to tell them everything. And okay. And he says, but they'll do absolutely anything for you. And he says, it's a special bond and a special camaraderie that anybody who's not a Marine has a difficult time understanding that.
Right.
Right.
And that I made that choice right then and there.
That's awesome. Well, we're glad you did.
Absolutely.
Number one, we're behind you a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3. I don't know. Not very many. But
I'm counting, especially when it comes to drinking.
But the fact of the matter is, I heard Kaos stories forever when I was in the Harrier community. Yeah, and now we're talking
still
to the man, the myth, the legend himself. I'm still hearing Kaos stories.
That's
now
right.
I'm hearing them directly from the man.
Absolutely. So you went to flight school. You
Yes.
You wound up getting Harriers.
No.
But I think I saw something that
No.
wasn't your first choice.
That-
Okay.
No, Harriers was not my first choice. They were killing people left and right there. And
Yeah. So
I wanted to be a
what was
fighter
your
pilot.
first?
I wanted F4. I actually wanted F-14s. And then the Marine
That'd have been
Corps, my
Now, were you going through when the Marines? We had an F-14 squadron in Beaufort briefly, and then they decided to
they got rid of them. And
Yeah,
I went to
yeah.
the yard sale and talked to. I got the leather jacket back in the closet here.
Yeah.
I bought this leather jacket for $5 and it looked like it had been a boat anchor for 10, 12 years. This is 1975.
Yeah.
And the guy, I'm talking to him, says, yeah, I'm going to graduate next year and I'm going to fly F-14. He says, you got a tough time doing that. The Marines just got rid of them. Like, what? That was my whole life. I wanted F4. He says, it's too complicated. Take too many people. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough MOSs to support that airplane. We're not getting it. So my first choice after that was F4s. I've got like 17 hours. I'm going to fly an F4 again, too, by the way. And I think I'm a certified flight instructor in it, too. With 17 hours total in the airplane. I wanted F4s. And then I wanted A4s, and Harriers was the third choice. And I was a little disappointed when they said, you're going Harriers. That ended after I got to Cherry Point, flying out of Hams 32, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was kind of a headquarters of maintenance squadron. And I flew. My job was to fly all the lieutenant colonels that had just come out of the Pentagon, hadn't flown in years.
Yeah. That was the A4 Mike.
That was my job.
A4 Mike.
Yeah. Let me tell you. I thought
OA4 Mike.
OA4M was the neatest looking A4. I thought it had that two-tone gray camouflage Marines on the side. It had that humpback that the A4M had on it. Unfortunately, it was underpowered as hell and had 50. It had two UHF, two VHF. So I might even had an HF, but it had
radios for days.
Yeah, the front cockpit could be talking on a completely different radio than a rear cockpit, which means you were guaranteed to go Nordo right after takeoff.
Yep.
If the lieutenant colonel touched the switch in there, so I say, sir, switch is all set up. We're ready to go. Only got
don't touch nothing.
Don't touch nothing, please, sir. Just in case, this is the Nordo recovery procedure. You're guaranteed to go Nordo on it. But that was a neat looking airplane. And I got a call one day. I was studying the NATOPS manual, and unfortunately it's written in Brit. It's advisable to lower the undercarriage whilst in the pattern, whilst in the circuit. And I go, wow, I guess that means put your landing gear down if you intend to land.
Yeah, England and the United States, right. Two countries separated by a common language.
Yeah, and carefully check the fuel cell with a torch.
Yep.
That's in there too.
That could end badly.
Well, I had to put a guy in the brig for actually doing that. And they gave me a call said, we got a back seat open at 203 right down there. Go down there and check in with Major Dunn, Cliff Dunn. He gave me my first flight in the Harrier. Basically went down there, and it was John Biote, Mike Nayalko, and Cliff Dunn. They were going to go out and drop some bombs at BT-11, and then they had each 6 Mark 76ers or something like that. Then they go up and do some dogfighting. And they briefed the hard deck soft deck was 10,000 feet, hard deck's 5,000 feet. They went out there, each made one pass, got all 6 bombs off in one pass. They didn't care anything about that. I'm in the back, and I am just, I kind of know some of the procedures, but he says, you ready to go? Yeah, okay. The airplane throws me back in the seat. We join up on the other 2 airplanes at the end of the 8,000-foot runway. And I'm pretty sure we were doing 400 knots.
Yep.
If I read the airspeed indicator correctly. 450. Went out, dropped the bombs in one pass, and started dogfighting. And I'm just amazed at what the airplane can do. And then here we are at 1,500 feet.
Hard deck's at 5, though.
Soft deck is 10. Hard deck's 5. We're at 1,500 feet inverted. And he starts to do a split S.
If you're inverted, it's 5,100 feet on the altimeter. So just
okay, maybe and then I see the 15-second light as while we're pointing down at the ground, and I had no idea what the 15-second light was. I thought, well, is that maybe time to impact? I don't know. No. So I had my hands on the D-ring, and I'm counting down. 14, 13, 12. At about 5, I was going to pop it full handle. And he came out behind these other 2 airplanes, and we came into the break, and all 3 of us went to the pad. And it was a 45-minute flight. And I went, I cannot believe all the stuff we just did that I've never done, even though I was comfortable in the A4. I've never done that kind of stuff. In 45 minutes, I said, I can't wait to start now. So
hey, was that a
to the Harrier?
Kaos? Was that T-AV-8A?
Yes. Yeah, T-AV-8A.
And these were all A models. The single seaters were A models as well, right?
My class had the 2-seater, and I had Dan Campbell, Gary Pheasant, and somebody else in the class that he DOR. The Harrier was the only airplane I think that you could say it's just not right for me. I'm not comfortable flying this airplane, and they would give you another top line airplane. And there's a couple people out there that made general, flying a full-board colonel in general that started off in Harriers and went to something else. I don't think there's another
Kaos. What year was that you went to the RAG? 75?
79.
79. Okay. So when did they get the T-birds? Do you recall? Was you the first class to have the T-birds?
No, mine was not the first. But I know the people that are flying with me now. Joe Anderson never flew a T-bird. His first flight was solo. Right. Bill Spicer never flew a T-bird. First flight was solo. And there's several classes there that your flight. The simulator was a throttle quadrant from a crashed airplane screwed to a coffee table in the ready room. I remember that. And they were teaching you, this is what the throttle, this is what the nozzle lever is. And the first flights, this one for me was just you go out and accelerate down the runway, you go to 60 knots, pull it to idle, coast to the end of the 8,000 runway, turn around, next go to 90 knots, and at 90 knots idle, power nozzle braking, throttle, I'm using too many acronyms here that people might not understand. Bring the throttle to idle, reverse the nozzle 17 degrees beyond the vertical, add power to stop to 60, and then go to idle, and then coast all the way to a stop, use the brakes. That was FAM 1 for them. And then the second flight.
And those were all in the single seat. Holy
yep.
Shit. Yeah.
Let me tell you, I don't think the FAA would approve that today. There were lots of things Marines do, but honestly, we were blazing new ground. We, the Marines, were blazing new ground. New airplane didn't fly like a helicopter, didn't fly like a airplane. We're trying to figure out how to use it and where to land it. And, it was shortly after Vietnam, trying to figure out how to use this thing, not only just fly it and not kill yourself, but use it as a weapon system. Yeah.
Holy cow. So when you got to your first gun squadron, it was A models, correct?
Yes.
Because we didn't start getting,
Yes. Okay. AV-8As. And we had 2 models. We had the AV-8A, and one had a water switch up here and a water switch down there. You had to know which one you're getting in. And it was, first squadron skipper was Bill Spicer.
What squadron was that?
Have you read any of his books?
I don't think so.
Sea Stories of a U.S. Marine. Let me put a plug in for him. First one, I laughed out loud when I read The Great Santini, probably 5 or 6 times. When I read Stripes to Bars, I laughed out loud that many times before I got halfway through the book. And I stopped and I called him up and said, "Hey, Spice, you just broke the record for The Great Santini." I've laughed out loud more times than that.
Spicer, last name Spicer, right?
W.R. Spicer. W.R. Spicer. It's a set of 5 books. I'm in book number 5. I got a whole chapter by myself. When I checked into him,
what squadron was that?
231.
Okay.
When I checked in, he threw me out of his office. And
of course he
and
did.
said, "Yeah, of course, that I would have done it." And he goes across the hall to Joe Anderson, who was the executive officer and the maintenance officer. Said, "Do you believe this little turd just came into my office here? He's a Naval Academy graduate. I'm going to straighten him out." And Anderson said, "Let me have him." And Spicer said, "No, he's mine." So he made me the admin officer right outside of his office, where I had daily contact with him, education and training. And we're great friends today because, you don't do anybody a favor if you're too easy on them. And Spicer actually he's a top-notch Marine. He was Force Recon, is enlisted. His books are, he was an admiral's aide. He's still friends with the admiral too, Renuzzi or something like that. and he flew H-34s in combat in Vietnam. That's an interesting book. I said, holy shit, about 10 times reading that book about Vietnam. Then how he transitioned to flying A4s and then the Harriers. And
I got to read these books.
Oh, yeah.
I highly recommend it. It's available on Amazon. The Harrier community, when I joined it, had 231 had 4 accidents and 3 fatalities in 1 year.
Oh my gosh.
And the wing commander said, we've got to find somebody from outside the community to come in there and get these cowboys straightened up.
Ruh-roh.
And Spicer was flying maintenance hops down at NARF, NATO rework facility. And they brought him in. He got the squadron command as a major. And his first AOM, this is my story that I heard. He walks in at 08. They published on the flight schedule. He walks in at 08, and there's people, a cup of coffee and whatnot, laughing and scratching. He says, what the hell is this? AOM means 8 o'clock. AOM, you're in your seats. When I walk in, you stand up until I tell you to sit down. We're going to do this again in 15 minutes. Anybody's not here, you use the recall roster, and you get them here within 15 minutes. So he walks back to his office, slams the door, and just waits. And about 10 seconds prior, he comes walking down the hallway again, walks in. They stand up, and he says, okay, seats, gentlemen, start writing notes. And nobody has a notepad. So he says, what the hell is this? When we have an AOM, it's at the time I tell you it's going to be. You're in your seats. You're ready to go. When I walk in, you stand up at attention, and then you sit down and you start taking notes. We'll do this again in 15 minutes. He walks back into his office, slams the door. Boom. They got another 15 minutes to do it. Come back in, 8:30. He walks back in. They stand up. Seats, gentlemen. Take notes. Note number 1. You're all fired. You fired everybody. He says, nobody has any job in this squadron until I give you a job. And he says, the first one's going to be an ATOPS check by me. XO, you're first up at 12 o'clock. And you better have 2 airplanes ready. You're also the AMO. So you get 2 airplanes ready at 12 o'clock. Take off. I don't mean walk to the airplanes. Take off. We're going to do the check ride. And that's the way he went through everybody in the squadron. So Spicer, there is no doubt in anybody's mind, he's the man in charge when he's in charge.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
That's beautiful.
All right. So how long was the first squadron tour back in those days?
1979 until 1984, when I left there to go to Edwards Air Force Base to go to the test pilot school, class of 85A. So I was in there.
That's just an amazingly long time. It seems like to be in a gun squadron.
Yeah. By the way, I spell my name Kaos. You're too young. You 2 young guys are too young to know about Maxwell Smart.
I remember.
I remember watching that.
Chaos, the International Organization for Crime, and that's kind of how I got the call sign there. Chaos. That's part of it. It was an air-to-air fight with 2 F-15s, and I tried every defensive maneuver I knew. A couple of that I just made up called the Nullshavak. That really they're not effective, but they're colorful.
Yeah,
and fun to fly. I bet. I could be wrong.
The first time, maybe not so if you have to shut the engine down. Okay.
Yeah. That's fun times right there. In a single engine airplane.
So and I'll tell you, the first year in the squadron, Spicer believed that you're not a section leader until I tell you you're a section leader. And it's not just a cross country. You can go to Patrick Air Force Base or Oceana for Happy or something like that. You're capable of taking 2 airplanes into combat and bringing both of them back. And so it took a while to get section leader compared to the sister squadron 542 and some other things like that. But we bombed every day. He says, I want you to be able to, if every system fails on that airplane, you can get a bomb on target. He called it the big orange theory. You're driving down a road in Florida with a couple of your friends, and you're looking out the window and you've got an orange, and when is the right time to throw that orange and hit the neighbor's mailbox that you hit? at 65 miles an hour. Until you develop that sight picture, you're not good enough. Where really the bomb sight at that time was just confirmed you were in the right place of space. So we flew every day, cross country every day, went on deployment. My first year in the squadron, I was gone 185 days.
Wow. You guys probably reckoned up flight time back then. I mean, like really flying.
Gone.
Yeah.
Patrick, yeah. We practiced packing up, going, unpacking, operating, packing up, coming back. And then he shifted a lot of the players. He shifted S4 maintenance and S3. He kept me as S1. Either I needed that he was happy with what I was doing, or he wasn't happy with what I was doing. So I stayed as S1 the whole time, and I shifted some of the players that were working for me, staff sergeants and whatnot.
Okay.
But we practiced operating out of I don't even know if they have them anymore, because they probably got computers. The little deployment desks. It's really a suitcase that just opens up with a flat space.
I remember those. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Your expeditionary desk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in the antique stores now.
So and then you went to, you said test pilot school after the first tour?
Yes. They select one Marine a year to go to Air Force. And it's only one a year. And I did pretty well academically at the Naval Academy. So they said, you're the guy going there, because that's a little tougher academically than the Navy test pilot school. And they selected several Marines to go there. And I showed up, and the first day, the commandant said, welcome here. We're not starting class for another 30 days. In the meantime, you've got to go get your flight physical that's good for a year, get a new one good for a year. You've got to pass the open and closed book test on the A37, T-38, and F4. Get all your flight gear, because we're going to hit the deck running in 30 days. So you were up to, and you got to take a test in physics and a test in mathematics. And I go, okay. So they gave us this study book about that day. And I looked at the front page of mathematics, and it said X equals X, back triple convoluted integral. And I went, well, I'm someplace in the middle there. So I studied and studied and studied, a lot of late night studying. This is just for the first test. Yeah. To see where you are. They have a sample test. They said you should be able to take the test comfortably in about 45 minutes. First time I took the sample test, 2 hours and a half. The next day I took the same sample test, 2 hours and 25 minutes. So the curve is improving, but not nearly as fast as what it needs to be. So comes the day of the test, and okay, pencils up. I'm figuring and calculating just about as fast as I can. And I had a degree in aerospace engineering too.
That was going to be a question of mine. So you had
I was an aero engineer and graduated with merit from the Naval Academy. Unfortunately, that was beyond the Sigma curve. I was too Sigma there, because out of 28 people, 26 of them had advanced degrees. I was one of the two that didn't have advanced degrees. And they pencils down. Everybody goes, what? And he says, wait a minute, everything here is graded on the curve. As long as you're 2 standard deviations from the peak, you'll be just fine. And one little guy who was an engineer said, I didn't think it was so bad. I had time to go through the whole test and check my answers, go back through twice. He got about 15 pencils thrown at him right then and there. He ended up being a very, very talented, very capable people. And that's the group I was in. But I figured that nobody ever died of a math test. Let's put the emphasis on the flying. I did well above average in the flying, well below average in the academic portion of it. But I said, what do they call the last person in the class? They call them a graduate. Right. And that was the important point.
And then so you
finished in the top 28. Yeah. Is that you finished in the top 28 in your class?
Yep. I finished in the top 95% of my class.
There you go.
So awesome. So after graduating the test pilot school, then you were, did you do evaluation testing or did you do operational testing or what did you do?
I went development testing. I went back right to Pax River. There were four of us and a program manager, Harrier pilots, and that's when the brand new AV-8B came out. There was enough work there was only four of us, and there was enough work for probably 10 of us. The F-18 at the time probably had 15 pilots, and those guys are trying to get on a test plan to do taxi test or, aerial refueling or something like that. I did high-level attack stuff, departure resistance. I was the project officer for the TAV-8B, first active duty guy to fly that, I think. Well, that's my story. So, it's absolutely true.
We'll go with that.
I was a shipboard testing, did the ski jump testing with the Spanish ship, a 12-degree ramp, and the Italian ship, which was a 6-degree ramp. The 6-degree ramp, you have to look at it at kind of an angle. So is there a ramp there at all?
It's not much.
And after I did the Italian ship, I wrote an evaluation. They designed that ship after watching some World War II movies, I think. They had center deck elevators, the center deck. Most of the audience might not understand this, but they had a center deck hangar, and it's like they designed some of the cars. I had a Fiat once. You can't take any one part off without taking two more parts off before you get to that one part.
Of course not.
And every part has 3 bolts. You can get to 2 of them. You can't get to the third bolt. 2 center deck elevators, and to restack the hangar, you had to put everything up topside to restack the hangar and put it back together. And those edge scuppers, you could taxi right off the edge of the carrier if you weren't, but it was turbine powered. So the single greatest thing, a time-consuming thing to get underway was to take the lines off. That was the single, because it's just turbine. They go, and the engine room looked like Starship Enterprise. I'm not kidding you. I had big screens here, and then the engineer sat in a big chair. And some of the characters that you may have seen about them is they don't put their arms through the sleeves of their jacket of the uniform. So they just hang them, drape them on like a cape, and
with the long cigarette holders and the.
Well, I didn't see that, but lunch takes an hour and a half, and I said, "This is the wintertime. We only have this much daylight. You want us to operate here? My guys will have lunch on the flight deck. Bring them up a sandwich or something. They're happy with that. We'll fuel. They'll eat a sandwich." Why? You don't want to have to socialize with us? We're trying to get the work done here. I mean, so we were working there, and they bring up these sandwiches called a bogadilla, and it's a hoagie roll, but it had a whole fish on it, the head sticking out of one side, and the tail sticking out of the other side. What? And I told my guys, I said, "Look, whatever they give you, it's a delicacy. I don't care what it is they put it in front of you. I don't care if whatever it is, you eat it and smile. You don't want to offend them. This is an international thing." And Captain, Major, I might have been a major at the time. They said, "This thing's got it's the whole fish on it." I said, "Eat it." And so one of the Marines grabs onto the sandwich, eats the head, because this is actually pretty good. And the rest of them started eating the thing. Well, dinner that night, they served, I'm sitting next to an admiral, and I'm sitting next to the captain and some other thing, and they bring us whole shrimp, the head and everything.
Sure. Yeah.
And the commander that's next to me, they're talking in excellent English and whatnot. And I'm looking at this shrimp on my plate going, well, I just told my guys they got to do it. So I got to do the same thing. They're excellent with a knife and fork, skill, surgeon quality. And they're sitting there talking, not even looking. They can peel a banana and eat the banana. They can peel this and that and peel that. So he starts peeling this shrimp. And I go, well, I might as well get the worst part over with. So I sliced off the head and ate the head. And he goes, "You Americans eat the head?"
No.
Well, I thought you guys did. Because there's no hell, we don't eat the shrimp head.
That's uncivilized.
Yeah, and we had a couple people on the test team, engineers, that they would come in and look at the table setting to determine if they were going to eat. I said, if you're not going to eat it, excuse yourself and, wait till breakfast. And okay. So we had a couple that if they ever saw a fish knife there, which is a different knife, they go, oh, I'm not even going to take a chance on this. And they would excuse themselves. Had a couple like that.
All right. So I'm going to throw one at you here, Chaos. Engine out landing at Richmond.
Yeah. It goes back to that being lucky versus good. I happened to be in the right place at the right time. We were scheduled, I was the section leader, scheduled to support the basic school out of Quantico, Virginia for some close air support. This was in wintertime. Had 4 flights. Early morning, with big tanks on, we'd take off in Cherry Point, go to Quantico, let down just around Richmond, down into the basic school there in the restricted areas, zorch around and do some, let a couple of them give us a hack and, come in and pop up and attack. And then when we hit the bingo field, come back, climb back up, go back to Cherry Point, refuel, do it again 3 more times. And on the second one, coming by Richmond, there's snow on the ground. So the black asphalt runway kind of stuck out like a sore thumb right by Richmond, Harrier Airport. The air traffic controller says, "Are you the same Shank 04 that came by here earlier?" And I said, "Yeah, I am. And I got 2 more after this. So it's going to be a long day." And he says, "Okay, I understand." And as soon as I pulled the throttle back, the engine let loose. Got a loud bang. PM went this way. JPT went this way. And I shut the engine down. And the wingman said, "You're on fire." And I said, "Well, I just shut the engine down. Am I on fire now?" He says, "I don't see anything right now." And I was right there by the airport, 17,000 feet, 180 degrees out from the airport. And I told Center, I said, "Hey, look, I just lost my engine. I need to land at Richmond there." And I just saw an airplane take off. So I knew which way the wind was and where they were landing.
Okay.
And so I started to do the engine out procedure. I was a little bit higher.
This is in a Aviate-A?
Aviate-A. Wings this big.
Yeah, it's like a little bitty.
The tail's as big as the wing.
Yeah.
Shit.
And heavy tanks, way heavy. So I started I went through a manual fuel relight. We have 2 fuel systems. We have a hydromechanical fuel system and then a manual, which is basically you're just controlling the open and close valve. And you've got to manually limit everything. Otherwise, you'll overtemp the engine or whatever if I had any engine left. So I went through a relight and I'm setting up to try to get slow. I'm 350 knots and 17,000 feet. And I'm trying to judge how far out I should be in order to land this airplane.
So, Jay, just to put this into perspective for the listeners, you are trying to do an air start, get power back on the plane, at the same time flying an engine out profile to a place you've never been.
Yes. Yeah, but I can see it. So that's peak is worth 1,000 scans.
You darn right.
The controller says, "Okay." I go through a relight, don't even know if the engine's running or not because I'm trying to judge and fly, and I look down. I'm still holding the relight button. The relight button is on the throttle, and that you give it continuous igniter. So if you get any fuel down the engine, it's got this spark plug going, light. Right. And I look and I got some kind of stabilized RPM, and I got some kind of stabilized JPT, and I went, I might have an engine. And then I came up on the throttle a little bit, and it went boom, boom, boom. Okay, no, maybe not much. So he said, "They know you're coming. You got 9,000 feet of runway. You are cleared to land. If you can, switch to this frequency." My first thought was, I don't have time to switch that frequency. And then I took a breath and go, "Yeah, I do." And so I switched the flight, and I took a breath before I said anything. I said, "A flight switch to 123.75. Try to act calm. And he came up
sound cool.
Yeah. So we're coming around the tower. I'm engine out. I got one approach at this. I'm going to land. And they said, "Roger, you're clear to land. We're rolling crash crew." So as I'm coming down, the gear speed on the Aviate-A is 250. Most Navy airplanes are 250. That's little insider information. I don't guess they want you going faster than 250, but the Harrier is 250. So and I didn't know enough to break that. I probably I didn't at the time know enough that it can handle way more than that. But I said, well, I'm waiting for 250. So I come in and I'm at about 600 feet and I'm waiting for the air. I said at 250 or 400 feet, 300 feet, I'm going to punch the gear down. And when I say punch the gear down, the 88A had a push button for the landing gear. It looks like up and then down.
Yeah.
And I had my finger on the down button. I'm waiting for the airspeed to get to, I don't know why I waited exactly for 250. I should have done it. But at 250, I pressed down. The gear goes 1, 2. There's 4 landing gear in a Harrier.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, about like that. And the 4th gear came down and locked. I got green about a second before I touched down. And
hey, how fast were you going? Kaos?
220, 230. Tire speed's 180.
Who cares at that point?
At that point, I hope the tires held. And I touched down on brick number 1. The very first bit of asphalt there, I touched down. And I threw the nozzle in reverse, and the HUD quit, by the way, on the way around final. I go, well, what else can go wrong? I don't have an engine now. I don't have a HUD. And I came up on the power. Something was doing something. I'm still in manual fuel, and the whole cockpit was shaking, so I couldn't see any of the gate. I didn't know how fast I was. And the old A4 number was 80 knots at 3,000 feet.
Right.
Yeah, but that had 2 brakes. One on each main gear.
And brakes that worked.
Yeah, you got one.
The Harrier brakes do a real good job of stopping the wheel. They don't do a real good job of stopping the airplane. So I saw that right at 80 knots. I saw the 3,000 foot board. So I did some real slowing at 6,000 feet. I got stopped, and there were 50 feet of runway left. A big pile of snow right there, and the airplane is shaking so bad I can't. I mean, it's just doing this. I said, Tower, I think I could taxi clear the runway if you got someplace. He said, stand by. And that time it shook too bad. It scared me. I can't say scared. I said it got my attention.
Concerned you.
It got my attention. And I said, too late. Shut it down. Jumped over the side. Oxygen hose hanging out the side. That broke loose. That's the way it's supposed to. And knee board still on knee board. I don't hit a step all the way. And then crash crew's coming up and it's smoking out of both ends. They hadn't had anything to do all day, so they're looking to spray it with foam. We got said, hold off just a second. Unless you see some fire, don't spray it. And I look in the front, and it's smoking, but the front looks like it's intact. Look in the back, and it's smoking, and it looks like it's intact. And I couldn't have just imagined that.
Right.
So we just let it cool off, taxied it back, and then I made the phone call. And so they said, we're going to send a crew up there with an engine, stay there for a day or two. So, that's kind of, and the wingman detached it. He went on back. And they changed the engine. And then when the Rolls-Royce tech rep came up there, he took the cold nozzle off of the side and said, hey, Art, look at this. And he takes his arm and sticks his arm all the way down in the engine and said, you see that? And he said, I'm not supposed to be able to do that. There's no blades there. There are all little pieces of that, like the pieces of broken blades and stuff like that. I said, I don't know how the engine ran. I said, well, the HUD quit on final. And he said, I don't even know how it did anything. And what happened was a piece of the first stage fan broke off and went down the whole engine and took out
right down the core.
Everything.
Yeah, one blade hits another blade. Two blades hit four blades.
It's like that nuclear thing where you got a ping pong ball and mouse traps and stuff like that.
Yeah,
just went like that.
So you
right place at the right time. And that airplane flew again.
Nice.
How about that?
Wow.
Okay.
And you had just enough windmilling for hydraulics, I guess. In the A, did the hydraulics lock up if you or the flight controls lock?
I know now you have to have about 8% RPM to get hydraulics.
Okay,
I know that because we've been trying to do air starts with the Sea Harrier on the ground by putting the L-39 in front of it and let the exhaust go down the intake. And at about 8%, the stick starts coming to the center, and you get about 1,000 pounds of hydraulic pressure.
There you go.
I'll be darned.
And it's got a lot of momentum. That core weighs 3,500 pounds. It's not going to stop instantly.
There's inertia there. Okay, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
So that was you got a single action air medal for saving.
Yes, I did. And when General Gustafson pinned it on me, and Harry Blott was the squadron skipper. I forgot who told me, but somebody said we were debating about whether to court-martial you or give you an air medal.
That's pretty awesome.
That's a show title: court-martial or air medal.
Right.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So were you in VMA 223 at some point?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I'm at an air show at. I'm flying the L-39, which is a really neat trainer airplane. I like it a lot. Super easy to fly. Hardly anything goes wrong. I had a complete hydraulic failure in that, and it's not even in the pocket checklist. Can you believe that? The flight controls are not hydraulic. Wow. It's only the flaps and the brakes and what. You got two brake systems on an accumulator. A hydraulic failure is not even in the in the book.
Not an emergency.
No, I guess not. It's checked. It happens all the time. I'm at an air show, and I'm wearing a flight suit with a 223 patch on it, and the Harrier demo is from 223, and so all the ground crews this is at New River. All the ground crews were in 223, and a guy comes up to me and says, "Sir, do you have authorization to wear that patch?" And I said, "Yeah, I was in 223 when you were in third grade." And they ended up taking. We did the math. He was actually in fourth grade.
That was pretty close, though.
But John Davis was the wing commander, and he came down to the air show. He's a good friend of mine. I got some Dog Davis stories too, because he was stupid enough. Ill-advised enough to give me one of his name tags on a cross country to Oceana. And I said, "Dog, you had a great time at Oceana. That's good news. Bad news is you can never go back." So he sees me at the air show and comes up, and it's like they used to have this commercial where, the people in slow motion were going toward each other and then they hug, it was that kind of thing. We hadn't seen each other in several years, and it was a good thing. But 223 actually I got a photograph of them in front of the airplane when they realized I had actually earned that patch.
Nice. All right. Well, Kaos, thank you for your service, number one. And God bless the United States Marine Corps.
Hurrah.
Yeah. Indeed.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You guys have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Art.
The first thing I'm going to do before we go into the other stuff is mention that Fig and I lost a squadron mate yesterday. We want to send our prayers and our thoughts out to Joan Paschal. Our squadron mate, Bo Paschal, passed away. We were told of a heart attack yesterday afternoon. We have heavy hearts this week, and we'll keep Bo and Joan in our thoughts and prayers this week. I will make an effort to attend the funeral if I can do so once we get that information. You hear in the background our friends, the Dos Gringos, the guys that give the Air Force a good name. Thank you to them for letting us use their music. Thanks to Dave Hamilton.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks to Dave over at Mac Geek Gab. Thanks also to Robin's Bird Brain Designs, our sponsor. You need something etched, personalized gift for somebody? Reach out to robinsbirdbraindesigns.com. You can follow us on sothereiwas.us/rumble, sothereiwas.us/Facebook. You can email us, RePete@sothereiwas.us, or Fig@sothereiwas.us. We have a glossary page up. Probably got a couple more terms today. Going to hit our glossary page on sothereiwas.us. But in the meantime, until next week, everybody, stay safe and
Check 6.
was crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
Like the song says,
It's over.
The next day, I got a chance to fly in a T-34, and we did some formation. And the instructor was practicing. I'm looking at a wingtip, 3 feet away or however far it was. And I'm going, that's pretty cool. Then he broke away and said, don't tell anybody we ever did that. So that's why you get to erase that from this podcast. And he was practicing.
Considered erased.